Hello, everybody. We'll get started now. So first of all, let me welcome you all to the FCCT. We're very happy to have you here, and we're very happy to have our guests here as well. This is a very exciting subject for many of us. There have been many changes in the Thai economy as of late, and the past, even 5 to 10 years have been, we've seen quite a lot of changes, particularly in the automotive industry, which has been quite strong for Thailand. I'd first like to introduce our panelists here. Far on the right, we have Yep Tin Ru, who is the CFO of Apico High Tech, a parts supplier to many customers in the automotive industry. Then we have Kreng Krai Techakanon, Associate Professor of Economics at Thammasat University. And Martin Noss, who is the Regional President of Robert Bosch Automotive Technologies. So I'd like to first just get into some basic things. If Thumb, could you please hit the next slide? I did not introduce myself, actually. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Nick Bernhardt. I'm the treasurer of the FCCT. And also I have a company here in Thailand which does market research and business intelligence work, which you'll see on the bottom right of the presentation up here. So some basic terms that I think we should review. Everyone, I think, at this point understands what ICE is and BEV and all of these EV things. I do think it's important. The end got chopped off there, sorry. I do think it's important to note there are some interesting distinctions coming in that have not been talked about until more recently, such as how HEVs or hybrid electric vehicles are maybe becoming a better alternative to pure BEVs, and also how you have this distinction with extended range or EREV. That's the bit that got chopped off. So I'd like you to keep an eye out for those terms. But with regards to Thailand, I think what's very important is to note that there are these policies that Thailand has put in place, namely 30 at 30, and by extension the EV 3.0, which has now been updated to 3.5. So what is 30 at 30? That is that Thailand would like to have all vehicles produced in the country, would like to have 30% of all vehicles produced in the country be electric vehicles by 2030. And we're coming up on that quite quickly now. We're, 5.5 years to go. And then the EV 3.5 now, which has just been updated, is the requirement for it's really targeted to specifically the Chinese manufacturers, but these companies that would like to produce vehicles in Thailand but also want to sell to the Thai market, which is one of the world's largest pickup truck markets, for example. So the requirement is that if they are going to get the tax incentives and other advantages that the government offers, they need to produce as many vehicles as they import. So this is quite a key thing to understand as well. Thumb, next slide, please. And then just to review a little bit of the recent news that has come out if you have not seen it already. So as you saw in the subtitle for this event, we've had a number of big brand exits. There's been significant Chinese investment, and then there are the overall changes in the Thai automotive industry. So first, the big brand exits. If you aren't familiar with the subject, GM sold its Rayong manufacturing facilities to GWM. And that is how GWM got its foothold in Thailand and really got quite a good head start on things without having to build its own facilities. Additionally, Ford has sent kind of mixed signals there, where it's talked about reducing and also increased investment in Thailand. So you see that they exited Japan and Indonesia, but they then announced a 900 million Thai baht investment into its Rayong factory. I believe the issue with this was they wanted to, and please panelists correct me if I'm wrong, but they wanted to reduce the cars and increase the trucks. So it's moving to mostly like the Ranger that is being produced in Rayong. Then we have significant Chinese investment. PTT and Foxconn began construction on a factory in 2022. Chang'an Automotive budgeted 10 billion Thai baht. This is up from 8.8 something not very long before for the Rayong EV factory. And then you have Morris Garages, or MG, under CP and SAIC. And BYD have also been making significant investments. You also have Aura, if you've seen the Aura Good Cat and these other vehicles, and some other brands that are around the city and the country. Overall, in the Thai automotive industry, car production contracted by 17.28% in the first 7 months of 2024. So we're at less than 1 million now. And then as part of that, Toyota slowed its production by 13% in Thailand with this slowing global sales as well. And there's much to talk about with the global auto industry as well, though I ask our panelists to try to keep things more regional focused if we can. And then a lot of what has been discussed recently has been about this updated plan where the electric vehicle producers need to hit 100,000 units, and they were unable to do so. They were at less than 50,000 so far, so there's nowhere they're going to do it, and so they then asked the government to reconsider and still allow them to get the advantages, and this is what the 3.5 plan has resulted in. I think that covers the basic background pretty well. So I'm going to pass it over to our panelists now to introduce themselves, and then we'll move on to some prepared questions that we have. Could we please begin with you on the far right? If you could introduce yourself.
Yes, hello. Okay. So my name is Sindru. I'm from Apico High Tech. So we are a listed company in Thailand with 3 main pillars. So we have automotive parts productions. So we manufacture parts like the frames for Isuzu or stamping plastic fuel tanks. This is our first pillar. And the second pillar, we also do dealerships. So in Thailand, we sell Mitsubishi cars and also MGs. And in Malaysia, we do Proton and Hondas. And the third pillar that we are now trying to focus is Internet of Things. So with things moving, so we have our own maps, digital maps, and doing smart factories. So these are 3 pillars. So we are a Malaysian company, a Malaysian founder, started the company in Thailand. Currently, we have locations, productions in Thailand, Malaysia, China, and Portugal. So this is, in a nutshell, it's about our company. Yep.
Thank you. If we could move on to Kun Kreng Krai. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Kreng Krai. I'm from Faculty of Economics, Thammasat University. I have been doing research on automobiles since my PhD, so it's about 22 years, but I still know little comparing to the person in the industrial sector. So today I'm happy to share the view of economics and on the automotive industry with all of you here.
Yeah, and then finally, my name is Martin Knoss. I'm in my 9th year already here in Thailand, German national, working for a German headquartered company, Bosch. We're a big tier 1 supplier globally to the automotive industry. We run 2 factories in Thailand. One is mainly for combustion engines, fuel injection, the other one for ABS braking systems. We do have a lot of trading business also. We import our parts from plants all over the world, sell mostly to Japanese OEMs. So the cash flow mainly at the moment is coming from Japanese OEMs for combustion engines. But we understood the signs of the times. We're looking into investment for EVs. We're in close contact with Chinese car makers, where we are enjoying business in China. So for us, the challenge is now to transfer the success we have in China to Thailand with Chinese OEMs and to really get serious with EVs. We believe in them. We believe the future is electric, and we're looking for investment opportunities.
Thank you all very much. So I'd like to move on to our first question, which is, I think, on the minds of anybody that watches the automotive industry in Thailand, where we've seen these big brands exit. We've seen Ford, sort of wish-wash back and forth and try to reduce their presence a little bit. So considering these big exits that we've had, are the recent investments that we've seen and the government's attempts to lure Chinese companies in to make these significant investments, are those enough to offset these losses and these changes that we're seeing in the automotive industry?
you address? Ladies first.
So I think there's a lot happening now in the automotive industries. It's no longer the same. So I may see that in the panel, I should be the youngest. I hope I'm the youngest. And then, so I'm newest in the auto industries. So it has been different. So when I first entered the industries, it was really stable. The customer will give us a forecast, say each model, how much they are producing of this year, next year, and the full models. And we just plan towards it. So we build a factory with that capacities. But with recent year, there's no longer what's happening. You can see fluctuations. Like COVID, suddenly things was gone. And then now when COVID was over, there was a big demand. Then we have to rush to supply. Then suddenly you have a microchip shortage. So managing it was really difficult. It was no longer the same. But now it's even more difficult because it seems like the automotive industries is slowing down, but it depends on the brand. It's not all brands that are slowing down. So for example, for my few plants that's in Thailand, we need to have a different policies now. So the one in Rayong supplying for Ford, we are so busy. So as mentioned, Ford, the capacity is still there, the demand is still there. We are running 2 shifts, and because of the Chinese OEM coming in, we are supplying from that plant. So that plant will be like 2 shifts plus OT Saturday and Sunday. Then at Chonburi, where the plant was supplying to Isuzu, because of the pickup market, the demand is still there. But it's just the banks are not releasing the finance. So the reject rate was really high. It's still really high. So you can see the slowdown in the market. So for that plant, I'm maybe running 1.5 shifts. So the policy now is very different. So I think each brands have their different policies. So okay, GM have left, but at the same time, I think the Chinese brand currently, the capacity we are looking at is about 550,000 productions unit. So hopefully they can achieve that amount because since I think the big flood after the first car campaign, we are always we have produced about 2.4 million cars, and it has been going down. So this year it was started at 1.9 million cars that we're looking at. Now it's 1.7 million cars that we'll be producing this year. And we are thinking that may not be achieved. So inside we are planning about 1.6. And so each brand market share is different, and we are hoping that the Chinese brands that are setting up their plant in Thailand will fulfill that differences soon. So I think they are also rushing for productions, and actually each Chinese brands have also faced different difficulties. So you can see that when Great Wall Motors come in, it was a big talk of the town. Everyone is rushing in. The customers, the demand was there. Then after a while, it slows down, and now the production is low. And so with that, then the BYD now, we are very busy with BYD. It's a new talk of the town. So I think we are at a confusing stage now. But technically, with the policies, by 2025 or 2026, we hope that the Chinese brand will produce. And also with the easing of the financial support from the banks, then the car will sell better. Because people are buying cars, but it's just the financing that's tightening, that's not financing the car. So we hope that next year, things will change, and then the industry will recover.
So it seems that we will order by age, I hope. Okay, so from the economics point of view, to next question is about the exit of big brand. I think you refer to GM. What I'm thinking is like GM exit, we have to think about their global strategy. Probably GM has not a good, in the past, GM had not good return on the investment in Asia. And also I think they have a quite ambitious goal at the beginning when they wait and invest in Thailand. I think they decide to invest in Thailand after the abolishment of the local content in 2000. But after they entrance to the Thai market, they try to sell their products and also to export. But if you're looking back from 2009 to 2019, according to the statistic by the TAIA, I think the accumulation production or sales of the GM in Thailand is less than 400,000 in 10 years. So I think this is not a big amount. So when considering their business landscape in Asia, Southeast Asia, maybe this is not a good return. So this may be the reason that they decide to exit to from the Thai market. And when we think about the Great Wall Motors, who took over the GM factories, and this is a good move for the Chinese. In my opinion, Great Wall Motor is the first, like the forerunner of the EV race in Thailand. They came before the EV package was, implemented. So they have to try to boost the demand. But since, from their production and the sales has been growing, so the government think we need more or stronger incentive. That's why EV 3.0 and 3.5 has been released. Then this create a lot of demand. So going back to the next question, if the entrance of Great Wall Motors alone will cover or offset the exit of GM, I think that is not sufficient in the short period. But if we think about the entry of the Chinese EV, I think this cover, so it can offset the exit of the GM. But as Sinru just mentioned about the growing demand in Rayong from Chinese car makers and also some companies like Ford. So I'm quite certain that the production should be increasingly in the near future. But of course, with stronger and more intense competition between ICE vehicle and the BEV.
I agree with you. I think in the big picture, we should not be too concerned. Ford and GM are basically right-sizing these years. They were giants before, and they are not any longer. And in a way, it's also okay if a company is good in producing combustion engines. They don't have to be the best one with EVs. Then maybe it's also time to make room for others. So it's a global thing that GM is cutting back. They also exited Germany, for example, and other markets. Ford is really focusing on what they do well, which is the pickup truck and the Everest. So that's quite a normal trend worldwide. No need to be worried for Thailand. And the replacement of Chinese OEMs is more than enough. Not only Great Wall, but if you look at BYD and SAIC MG coming now to the country, they can really replace. What concerns me a bit is there is more than Ford and GM. Suzuki is leaving the country right now. Subaru closed down. So the Japanese are also starting to close down already. And I do believe that the Chinese have potentials to replace them, but then the country might become very dependent on only one country or one source of technology. And that's not in the interest of Thailand. Thailand is good in being friends with everybody, to be open to everyone. If now everyone gives up and leaves the room only for Chinese, yes, the economy might survive, the volumes are there, but you bring yourself into a maybe unwanted dependency.
Thank you very much. So I'd just like to ask a follow-up question as well. There have been I don't have the details, but I know there was a recent agreement or more demand by the Thai government to have 100% of the parts produced in Thailand as well, especially for Apico High-Tech and for Bosch. I think that is incredibly important. So with regards to that and this shift from these more established big companies to the up-and-coming Chinese, can you also speak about that change?
So technically, the government now have a 40%, we call it the local content. So for the cars that produce in Thailand, you need to have a 40% local content. So for the Thai auto industries, we are also focusing on this, that how do you actually calculate the local content? In the past, profit is also considered part of the local content. So I think the Chinese brand has been doing business differently. So in the past, if I'm producing a parts for Japanese or the Western company, I get to stamp the steel, stamp the parts, and then I weld the part or assemble the parts, and then I deliver it. But currently, what we are seeing from the Chinese are they are importing all the big parts from China, and we are just welding it. So it's more like we are just getting a few baht of process costs. So in that sense, we don't really like it because it's called lower value added for us. So the prices are very cheap, and it's very hard to compete with the Chinese suppliers. The pricing demand from the Chinese brands are lower, I can say. So we are hopefully with all this local content, if Thailand increase the local content and also change the equations of the local content, that may help the local industries.
Okay, if considering about the local content, I think the EV package, I mean the MOU, if the companies sign for this, they are committed to produce locally to compensate what they import. That is one thing. And then in the next 4 or 5 years, they need to localize some parts. But based on the document provided by the BOI, I think the BOI seems to believe in the high value added of the battery cells production. So in the condition, like if the company decide to produce battery cells, then they do not need to produce other parts like the traction motors. If I'm wrong, maybe Martin can correct me, but this is from the BOI document. So what I like about this policy is like the BOI provide very flexible conditions because it depends on the business prospect of each company. Of course, if a company want to produce less parts, they need to focus on the cells battery. So they do not need to produce others. But if they produce just a module, then they need to produce the other parts. So with this, if I mean the Chinese car makers, if they operate in Thailand, there are several brands at present. I think 5 already construct the factories. So they can see which one will be produced by which firm. I'm not sure, but this can be possible because in the past, when the Thai government implement the local content for diesel engine, we have seen this is an evidence that Isuzu, Toyota, and Nissan, they share parts, even though no one imagined this could happen. But in the EV production of, I mean, the parts, I'm not sure whether this can be shared or not. But with this flexibility, each firm will see what kind of parts they should produce with the limited, domestic market at this moment. But 400,000 units, if they can produce at a full capacity, we do not know when they can reach this capacity production. But anyway, it can be a good starting for localized. Of course, this is not including some bulky parts that should be localized, like seats, stamping parts, unless the technology has shifted to the giga casting. In that case, it will diminish. I mean, the number of parts will be much smaller. So the first-tier supplier could be in difficulty to invest in that kind of, huge investment for the facility. So this is my opinion.
Yeah, we are at the very beginning, aren't we? So it's a bit prediction what we do here. How will it all go? First of all, I fully agree with a very sensible government regulators policy, what the BOI does at the moment. We as industry, I think, are happy with how they do it. There is a certain paradigm above all that they say, do whatever's good for the country. They give the investor always the opportunity to make a proposal. If it's good for the country, if it creates jobs, if it brings technology, then they are more than open to support. the support again comes in a sensible way. It's usually tax cuts. They don't inject direct cash, so they don't buy any industry, but they try to make life easy for us as an investor. Tax cuts, visa regulations are simplified, those kind of things. So I think they do right. Also timing-wise, they insist, of course, first of all, on 40% local content, and that's absolutely necessary and possible to do in a developed automotive country like Thailand. Number two, they look at the batteries. They want to see something in the battery because it's the key technology of an EV. And then only after 3 years after SOP, they ask for key components of an EV, including the traction motor. So very sensible. They give us time from that side. Good. The big unknown thing is how will the Chinese car makers behave? Do they just bring in their own incumbent suppliers, which, by the way, is also an opportunity for a multinational like ourselves. We are a supplier in China. But it's a threat for local tier 1, tier 2 Thai companies. And that's the uncertainty probably at the moment. How will they behave? We see that they are not very open to change their culture. They want to do it the same way like they did in China. But it's open competition. We have to learn from it and find our business case most of all. I think that's what drives all of us. At the moment, the volumes are so low that with our business models, investing in machinery, equipment, and then supply the parts, it doesn't work simply because we don't have the volume base. So how do we deal with that? How long can we wait? Can we afford to wait and not risk that the business goes to somebody else? These are the thoughts I think we all are having at the moment in our companies. The good thing is the train started to move, so we know the direction, and we have to find the way how to be part of the value chain and start the investment now.
Thank you. I think this is a good segue into the next question as well, where we have a lot of these changing regulations, and everything seems to be all right. Thailand is figuring it out, which is good. It's heading in the right direction, and it's adapting, which is most important. But then along with this, we see some disappointment as well. Like, for example, the inability for these companies to meet the 100,000 vehicle target that they had set out for this year. So, what are the greater implications of these companies' failures to meet the EV production targets and their requests to extend deadlines and these changing regulations? What does it mean for the Thai automotive industry, and also what does it mean for the greater EV trend as a whole if we're seeing this happen in a country which is so well established with its automotive industry?
So I think, so for Chinese brand, they are using Thailand or Malaysia, Southeast Asia, for producing their right-hand drive to supply globally. So it's not only for Thailand, but it's for global. For them to fail their target currently, when we are talking to our customers, it's not intentional. It's just that the demand is soft. So it's very hard for them to produce the car and start stocking them. They are hoping if the financial policy is easing with the bank giving more relax on their borrowing or lendings, things will return, then they can achieve that target. So with that, we hope that it will recover. It's not, of course, it's not the good news that they are extending and slowing down the production units, but we hope that with more stable governments and the easing of the financial policies, because the demand is there. So whenever we talk to the markets, people are still buying cars, but they just can't finance the car. So yeah, so and also we are hoping that if the globally things are recovering, this is a base for exports, because currently cars that are producing in Thailand is not only sold in Thailand. More than 50% is exported globally. So we are not only based on the Thai economic itself, but it's more on the global economy. So we are looking at the bigger pictures.
Okay, I think Sindhu already answered a lot of the point that's similar to my idea. But okay, I will capture this with a small focus. I think when we thinking about the Chinese EV makers may not be able to, ramp up the production up to their full capacity. I think this is normal in the transition period, because after the first 2 years of the EV 3.0, a lot of incentive have been providing, and also the generous subsidy like 150,000 baht to the producer. I think this generates a lot of demand. But what we see, and it's quite surprising to me, is that along with this process, there are some external economies of scale happened. The term external economies of scale from economic perspectives, like the growth of the EV industry drive down the price of the battery. I'm not sure whether this is because of the scale economy in the battery or the weak demand. This one, to be honest, I'm not sure. But what we can see is like how come the model that introduced 2 or 3 years ago becomes cheaper by 20 to 30% in just 2.5 years. So with this, it will create a lot of pressure to the existing car makers, including the incumbent firm like Japanese who produce ICE. So what we can expect is like in the process of transition, when the bank had put a lot of restriction on the loan, so the people cannot buy a new car easily. And you may know that Thai people, they prefer also buying a second-hand car. So when the price of the new car becomes cheaper, so the price of the used car is much more cheaper. So the people with has lower income level, they can switch from buying the new car to the used car market. So this will have the negative effect to the sales of the new car. So what I'm thinking is like this is the transition, and it's still we are finding the equilibrium. We do not know yet when this will be reached, but anyway, this is the process of change, and in the next 2 years, this still continue, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we are living in hard automotive times anyway. Nick showed it in the beginning. The car market is down around about 20% at the moment. Pickup trucks are down 40% year on year at the moment. And EV segment, although it is far away from the 100,000 target, is plus growing. It's EVs and hybrid electric vehicles are the only segments which are growing. So considering the weak market environment we're in, I think we are on track, and it's going a good way. What's missing is the export. Yep, you're absolutely right. And that's what Thailand builds on and hopes for, to repeat that success model of exporting cars into the world. And I think we're just caught in big politics at the moment. Will the EU and will the US accept Chinese cars made in Thailand with lower import tariffs than they do currently to the China-made Chinese cars? It's the big open question. Yeah, and will the market overall take off for export? That's what we don't know at the moment, and this is the decisive battle, I think. If Thailand can achieve that position as an export hub, then the growth will happen and the whole thing will fly.
Thank you. I want to move on now to talk about what's going on specifically in Thailand with the adoption of EVs. So there have been a few issues with the development of Thailand's charging infrastructure. And this is, we're in a country which is really trying to push EV development as well. So you see things like you go to a PTT and the charging station is full of ICE cars, and you're like, what is going on? Also, my company as well, we do, a part of the market research we do is a lot of surveys. We found in a survey we did of over 300 people that only 1% of people had an EV. And this is not just in Bangkok. This is about 50% in Bangkok and 50% upcountry. So you would think, maybe, people that who travel farther might prefer an ICE, or people that are just sticking around their little small town are gonna, no, we're not really seeing that. So what's going on with this difficult adoption, and is that representative of the world's problems with EV adoption? Will HEV and EREV vehicles help to alleviate this problem? And if that's the case, then what does that mean for the auto industry with needing to move forward, with developing two types of drivetrains simultaneously?
Okay, we change the order now. I'm not so negative about the charging infrastructure. You can drive to Chiang Mai and charge your EV on the way. You can even go to the northeast. It's all fine. What's lacking is home charging in big apartment buildings. This is really a bottleneck because you don't want to go to the fast chargers all the time. You need slow charging overnight. If you live in a condo building, you're probably lost. To be a bit provocative, is Thailand maybe too big business friendly? Why don't they make a law and make it mandatory in developments in the condo buildings to have charging? It's not in the economic interest of the developer at the moment to do that. It costs them money, and I think that needs government regulation. And then we would be okay with infrastructure. People could go buy cars, could be a good way. The hybrids you mentioned, yes, it's a global trend going back to hybrids. I'm personally disappointed because I think the planet needs quick action and not going back to combustion. But maybe we have to be realistic. If it then helps to bridge some time and eventually go fully electric in a few years' time, so it be, then it's good. It's good for, I don't think Thailand, for countries like Indonesia it's good, where you don't have infrastructure, then you can at least drive partly electric. For the business companies like mine, it's tailwind, it helps us, yes. We earn our money with combustion and invest it in the future, in electric, in hydrogen, in those areas. So it gives us a bit more time to earn some more money with our old components and finance the future. There are other companies who bet on electric from the beginning, startup companies, car makers like Tesla. They go a different way. They don't have this heritage like we do as Bosch. For them, of course, it's bad news because they put all their money from the beginning on pure electric. It holds them back a little bit, and that's also my concern, that the whole momentum is a bit slowed down. We would need more now because we have no time for fighting climate warming, global warming.
Okay, about the charging station, in 2016 or 17, I remember that when the government just released the target to be to make Thailand to be the production hub for EV. At that time, they mentioned about the charging station, just 690, if my memory is correct. And what was in my thought at that time is like, was it sufficient? I mean, 690 for public charging station, that was too small in my opinion. But last year's statistic shows from the EVAT, now we have more than 2,000, I think now it's more than 2,000, almost 2,700 public station. And among this, we have like 4,500 DC charging and 5,100 with AC charge, slow charge. And this is not, of course, not include the charging that is in the home user. So with this number, that has been like several times higher than the initial plan. So and this can explain the adoption of the EV in Thailand. Of course, the adoption of the EV in Thailand can be explained by two things. The first is infrastructure, but more importantly, it is the price. So I think in this case, the key feature of the Thai industrial policy is to promote two things at the same time. We don't know, this is kind of catch-22, what we promote first, EV or charging station, but actually it should promote at the same time. So in the past 5 years or 6 years, I think this is the right direction that the Thai government could promote both the use and the supply side. And the supply side, this is for infrastructure, and the supply side is for production capacity that we can attract several car makers. And another point is about the transition to the BEV. Because BEV has some limitation, as Martin mentioned. If you want to drive from Bangkok to Chiang Mai, you need to stop by and find a DC charger if you want to spend less time. But if you don't believe, I think many of you still drive ICE. Some you may drive BEV, right? So this is the difficulty for adoption.
May I just interrupt real quick and ask, could anybody that drives an electric vehicle raise their hand? now. Could anybody, are they hybrid or pure BEV? BEV? Both? Pure. Okay, does anybody else have a hybrid vehicle or anything like that? Okay, interesting. You're, I think, ahead of the curve, but thank you for that. Please continue.
I'm still used to IC. Of course, I'm interested in buying a BEV, but my concern is like, where do I charge? Can I drive far away for something? But actually, BEV is very suitable for city commuting. My son, 22 years, if he would buy a car, he may aim at the small BEV. Because he lives in Bangkok, you know, but when we drive far away, of course it will be on the ICE car at the moment. So, but in the transition, what I'm thinking is like, if the Thai market has been shifted towards the intermediate step like HEV or EREV, this is a good transition in my opinion, because when we have to produce more HEV, it requires parts. And the parts that we need to produce, it can, for some sense, I'm not sure whether I'm correct or not, but it has some link to the EV, because some infrastructure or architecture, they use the high, I think they use the high voltage, right, for HEV, a little, I'm not sure. And then the motor they need and battery, so it can create sufficient demand in the future. So in terms of the usage, I think it's good. And also for the production side, I think this is also good. But if this is how to say, another point is, if people, I mean Thai consumer, they are familiar with the HEV, I think they will have some idea what BEV should be. Then in the future they may adopt. So it should be a smooth transition in my opinion, from HEV in this transition period, like 5 to 10 years, and then in the future, time will tell which technology will be the dominant design for the electric vehicle. It can be fuel cells, it can be solid state battery, or it can be any. So this is my opinion on this.
I think this is a question that we have been asking ourselves all the time. How fast will be the EV adoptions? Because the company needs to have strategies to it. So I think if you asked us 2 years ago, the EV adoption seems to be EV adoptions at the same time. It seems to be very fast. It comes faster than we expected. So we're thinking by 10 or 15 years time, it will be like 30% ICE, 30% HEV, and 30% BEV, according to the studies. Then with the current developments, we are looking that the BEV segments may be a bit lower now, because I think the EV technologies has been changing very quickly. Even with the batteries, everything has been changing very fast, because the batteries that come up this year and last year is at different range and everything. So this is the situations. I think the new technology will still be coming out. So today we may say that BEV adoptions may be slow due to some limitations, but things may change tomorrow because someone may find something new. So as I mentioned, currently the automotive industry is at a junctions. Things changes very fast, and we will just have to monitor it all the time. And also, I think the problem with BEVs is, so I think some of them have, but for Thailand, for example, we're looking at the charging stations and where to charge traffics. And for example, if you go far for Songkran holidays or New Year, it's really difficult for us to drive from maybe Bangkok to Khon Kaen. It can, but with the traffics and everything, things changes and you can't find a charging stations in between. So I think that's the difficulties in the infrastructures, and that has to change. And also I think this time with the floods coming, it will be a test for the BEVs, whether it will shut down or slow down or stops in the floods, and how high the water levels can the BEV takes. So I think things like that has slowed down that the EV adaptations, but just look out at new technologies. We are always looking at it. But we are still believing that in 10 to 15 year time, it will be 30, 40, and another like 25% structure. So there will be all 3 models around. Yes, it's difficult to manage, but at the same time, we keep going back to see that parts is the same. Some of the parts, not all the parts, are the same for these 3 types of cars. So they still need the wheels. So for us, we still produce the wheel for all the types. They still need the frames, but the structures may be different, but the machines or the production process are similar. So these are things that we are currently studying and adapting for the changes in the automotive industries.
I could be a bit sarcastic now to your argument about the flooding. If you wait longer with the EVs, you will see more flooding. We have more EVs, then we have less flooding. It's about the big picture, what I miss sometimes, about why are we doing all this? We don't do the EVs because they are more convenient. If they are, it's fine, but we do it to get the carbon out of the atmosphere. That's why we do it. I think this whole hybrid discussion, plug-in hybrids, you could see it as glass half full or half empty. So I can go with that it might lead us in the right direction. But on the other hand, you could say it holds us back a little bit. We could be faster. You can see it both ways. I agree with that. The point I want to make, and what is important, is that the governments must be strong now and set clear targets to the industry. It would be toxic for us, and I see beginnings already that all these regulations are opening up, and the industry doesn't know anymore where to invest, and people start investing in combustion engines again. This is really toxic, and we need strong governments worldwide now who stick to their targets, and then industry can adopt. Those who cannot adopt go off the market, and new companies come up. It's tough sometimes, but it's a free market economy. And if we have clear targets, the strong companies will survive. We follow the targets, and then we go in that direction.
That's a very big subject, Martin, which I wish we had more time for. But the how and why to develop new technologies is huge, and how to convince people. So perhaps something for after the panel. I think there were some very good points there. From pointing out that the weakness in the charging infrastructure is often not what we think of the stations, but the homes, issues with floods, with holiday times, and when you have to be in an area for a much longer period of time to refuel your vehicle. Also, that developing HEV technology may ease the transition to pure BEV. Great points that you all made. Thank you. We are getting pretty far into it, so we'll be moving to the Q&A section soon. I have just a couple more questions. Maybe I'll nix the last one. But I'd really like to know if we can back out to a regional view. I'd like to ask you all, is Thailand's legacy automotive industry enough to compete with Indonesia's natural resource advantage? As we see, they are also trying to pull in this investment into the region. Is it going to keep Thailand dominant as a regional manufacturing hub, especially considering the difficulty committing to EV use? And what are the other important supply chain factors here? If we can go backwards again, starting with Martin, that would be great. Thank you.
I think we have good conditions here. We have a supply basis which is very stable, very capable of running automotive business. We have technical colleges and universities. We have staff in working age. We can hire. So hiring is good. In investing, purchasing is good. Those are conditions which are very difficult for neighboring countries to catch up with, especially in the automotive sector. If it would be any kind of industry, you would say maybe we go to Vietnam, but talking about automotive, the suppliers are here, the knowledge is here. That's why I think Thailand is still ahead. It's not granted, of course, competitive countries might come up, so that might be open. What really worries me for the future, before placing big investments here, is demographics. That's because Thailand is the aging society in the region in Southeast Asia. That means a shrinking demand, less people to buy cars, eventually also maybe less staff for staffing. That's a real threat. And long term, if you think about putting a $1 billion investment in the country, you might consider the neighboring countries because of the declining population. That's the only thing what really worries me.
You first, from the business.
Okay, so from the business side, I think Thailand have a very strong supply chain. So as I mentioned, so in automotive, we call it QCDEM, so it's quality, cost, delivery, engineering, and management. If someone in the industry will know that in Thailand, one parts have only one suppliers. So if one person fail to send the part to the customers, the whole production line stops. So we may be a competitors when we bid for the projects, but when the project is on, when the start of productions, I think everyone in the industries just hope that no one make a mistakes and you keep supplying. If even my competitors stop supplying one bolt or nuts, they don't order from me. So it's a very lean production base. We have been trained mainly by the Japanese for a long time. So this cannot be copied elsewhere. We have recently have an investments in Malaysia, and we can feel that the production process, the people, the skills are different. So this is a strength of the Thai auto industries. And at the same time, the Thai auto industries, the pickup itself, it's exported globally over 100 countries. So you don't want a fuel tanks to be a recall or a brake line. So this is a very high standards that has been met by the auto industry in Thailand. So I think Indonesia is coming, but this part of it, the skill part of it of Thailand, we still have that strength.
Okay, thank you. I think if you listen to both from the industrial sector, this is more, you feel more confident than hearing from the academic point of view. Anyway, from my perspective, when I study the industrial policy, when I received a question from Nick, I think this is a very good question, and I always think about this question. Will Thailand be able to compete in the new technology? And the question that comes to my mind is like, now the landscape of the competition has changed. So the technological disruption in the auto industry, we may believe that Indonesia has a strong point in the material, like the nickel, that is important for battery. But when we're looking at the automotive sector, from my point of view, I think the automotive sector, we need a lot of suppliers. So when we look back in the past 60 years, we may say that the Thai government or Thai industrial policy has been quite successful in nurturing this kind of supporting industry in the country. So as Apico High Tech mentioned, or from Bosch, this system is not easy to replicate elsewhere. So it is something like Thailand has some, at this point we have some advantage to be the production hub for the EV. I'm quite optimistic. Why I think like this? Because in the automotive cluster, in one of my research in the past 5 years, I have been looking at the location of suppliers, or part suppliers in Thailand. And surprisingly, the bilateral distance between all of them is less than 150 kilometers. So that means they are very concentrated in a certain area. And as you know, this is in the Eastern Economic Corridor. So in 1990s, when the Thai government promoted the Eastern Seaboard Development Project, that was actually, it was not designed for automotive. It designed for all the sectors, even the labor intensive. If it is, at that time, it's suitable for labor intensive industry. But since the advantage of the location, that proximity to the city, Bangkok is the largest market, and the port, that was quite important for import parts and export of the car. Even though at that time we don't have any production for export yet, but the facility was there, so that means we have a kind of very good combinations of the ingredient, like we have infrastructure, we have sufficient demand, and we have experience from the knowledge transfer from the Japanese. We have been learning about the engineering capabilities as R&D departments has been developed into R&D center in Thailand. So in this case, if we're looking into to the future for the new technology, of course, it needs sometimes for those new technology to transfer because all these things still remain in their headquarters. But once they has ramped up production in Thailand, I think some portion of the knowledge should be transferred to Thailand. Not only the car assembly, but also some parts production if the localization of EV parts had been materialized in the next 5 years.
Thank you. You say it's a good question, but after listening to your answers, it seems obvious to me that it's easier to ship nickel than to ship literally everything else outside. So it's sometimes the most important things are obvious in hindsight. Thank you. I'd like to turn the floor over now to anybody who would like to ask a question to our panelists. And while we wait for a couple people to line up, I'd just like to ask you, what has led us to where we are today with the automotive industry in Thailand, and what do you each think that the future looks like? And please keep your answers brief for anyone that would like to pose their own questions.
So I think the government has done some good job. So there's 3 prongs in the automotive industry. So I think we started with the pickup trucks. So currently the pickup trucks we are exporting globally. Then after that it was the eco cars. Then it added another volumes to Thai automotive industries. And then the third prong now is the EVs. We are hoping that will bring another 550,000 into the industry. So with all this, maybe we can produce hopefully 3 million cars. I think that was a target that we have set for a long time, and that was not achieved. So we hope that the third prong will actually bring in 3 million cars. So since I'm in the industry, I would say that we see hope in the industry. So with this, we think we're better. And also with the political situation globally, we can see that a lot of customers, they are not only buying from China now, they are always looking at C+1. And I think Thailand is at a good position to be that +1. So we actually see that as an opportunities. So maybe a lot of people are pessimistic about the industry currently, but I think for long run, it should be still good. Yeah.
Okay. I think the future for Thai automotive industry, I will look at three perspective, not point of view. The first is from the consumer perspective. With the introduction of BEV and the technological progress, I think this will have the strong pressure on the ICE, so consumers should benefit from lower price, I believe. Because no matter how high the cost is for ICE or the market power, with the newcomer, new entrants to the market, this should lead to the price reduction or improve the quality of the car. So this is the first one. The second is about infrastructure. We need more charging station, and another point is we need clean energy, because if we produce, electricity using the fossil or not renewable energy, this will not help reducing the carbon emission. And the third is about the global scale of the production. I believe that the world is moving towards the electric vehicle, but we should not deny that the level of development in the global scale is not equal. So some countries, they may not have sufficient, or they are not ready to prepare for the infrastructure. So the ICE is still, the demand will still remain like at this level for a certain period of time. But if the change to the HEV, that the point that I mentioned earlier, if you were the importer of the car from Thailand, and you have to be select the 2 models, IC and HEV, at not so much different price, because we have the scale economy, then we can produce the HEV at the competitive price. So in this case, this can be another product that we can export to the world market. But the point is, in order to be, remain relevant to the global automobile production, we need to upgrade existing capacity. We are facing the challenge of aging society, increasing the wage, and then lower demand. So outward looking should be the future if the Thai automotive industry want to remain in the top 10 or top 12 in the world production? Thank you.
Yeah, well, you asked what brought us to the sweet spot we are now in the automotive industry. I think fundamentally it's the openness of Thailand as a country to be open for all investors, to welcome foreigners from wherever we come from. That's a fundamental, deeply rooted in Thailand, in the DNA of the Thai people and of the Thai governments, whatever government was. That's very important. Secondly, Thailand was never over-ambitious. We never tried an own brand in Thailand. Neighboring countries tried that. Vietnam is trying still, with not much success. I think that was very clever of the Thais to also know their limitations and make the thing very reasonable and, in the end, successful. So I'm confident it can continue, but there are big changes at the moment, big challenges. I wish Thailand to continue on that successful way.
Absolutely. Thank you. Would anybody like to ask a question? Could you please go to the microphone at the back of the dining area? Please introduce yourself as well, your name and where you're from, and then please ask the question.
Hi, Pavida Pananon from Thammasat University. Different faculty. I'm from the business school. Dr. Grenkrai is from economics. And it's very good to hear both the three of you, because normally my conversation with Dr. Grenkrai, he would be the positive one and I would be the pessimistic one. But listening to him on the panel, he seemed to be a little bit more have some reservation compared to the industry. But anyway, my question would be twofold. One is on Thailand current policy of welcoming EV to the point of we are also encouraging import of completely built-in car from China, which is also trying to get rid of their oversupply in the country because of the demand in China might be low. And that would go against the policy of trying to build the capacity in the local suppliers, wouldn't it? Because when you encourage the whole car with duty-free import, and at the same time you're trying to build local supplier through local content, and it's not quite clear which kind of local content policy you are addressing. And that kind of go against each other a little bit. And wouldn't that be in danger of Thailand, that if we are looked at as some place that is now becoming the kind of the second China, and with the EU policy becoming more restrictive on import of Chinese car, and would that be a kind of Thailand betting everything on the Chinese car? And at the same time, perhaps jeopardizing the Japanese car industry that has long been here and is trying to claim that maybe EV is not the only answer. What about hydrogen and what about other technology? So that's one question on the kind of the global value chain. And at the same time, countries are seeing that having a production hub in one place and export to the rest of the world might not be the model that we are seeing in the age of geopolitical and geoeconomic tension. Mexico is actually benefiting from all this with cars and many industry going to nearshore more. So that's the first question. The second question is on the future of technology. Are we already quite clear that EV would be the technology going forward? The Japanese seems to be arguing that yes, EV is something that is important, but they are also still betting on hydrogen. And they are saying that EV might be good for cities, as you say that Bangkok is needed. But what about in Africa or something, that the infrastructure would be even more needed for EV? If the whole world bet on EV, and what would be the kind of the other technology? Are there still potential for other technology? And what would that mean for suppliers who are not first tier like the two of you? Thank you.
Wow, that was a lot, huh? Okay, I try to start. I personally also think these incentives for importing Chinese cars was maybe a bit overdone. Maybe the government was nervous at that time and offered a little bit too much. And at the moment, it's a shame that we see so much decline in local production and all those EVs are imported, duty-free even. Also not fair to Chinese, Korean, and even European car makers who pay a lot of import duties. I don't know, my personal opinion, yes, overdone, but it's temporary. It will go away again. The trade barriers come up again and they will have to pay import duties. That will happen. You mentioned so much. Future trends, hydrogen. Yeah, but it's a bit a dream. Hydrogen is more investment than EV. You need pipelines for the hydrogen if you do it big scale. My company invested, we have fuel cells for heavy duty trucks now on the market. We are in mass production because we believe for heavy duty, those tons of batteries are unreasonable. Then hydrogen is a good alternative and the hydrogen fuel cell is a very efficient powertrain. We see now about 3% in 2030, 3.0. Very low demand because it's expensive and it needs, again, infrastructure for hydrogen pipelines, hydrogen filling stations. It's not happening, and again, maybe I'm too aggressive here, but I don't think we have the time to wait. We are in a climate war at the moment. So no, I don't think hydrogen will help us in the long run, not in mobility. Hydrogen is very important for energy storage in the energy sector, but in the cars and trucks, more than 95% is battery electric, so let's focus on the important ones and do that.
I may share some view reflect to Ajahn Pavida question. I cannot answer about the technology because as Martin said, hydrogen is probably in the future because a lot of I think we need a lot of high investment for the station for hydrogen station. But for the first point that you mentioned about whether or not Thailand has been too generous for importing CBU while there was excess supply in China, I think it's maybe a coincidence. But if we're looking at the free trade agreement, the Chinese can export to Thailand with 0%, right? But if they are not in the MOU with the government, they need to pay excise tax at 8%. So the handicap is like if you were apply for the MOU, you pay only 2%, so only 6% different. So this is the thing that the government, I think, try to leverage this, whether or not it attract the Chinese car makers enough to invest in Thailand. And I think it was not sufficient. That's why they decide to increase the subsidy up to 150 for the EB 3.0. From economics perspective, if you want something to be produced in the country, we need the investor to put the money and construct a factory. So it's not easy to move out. And then the production capacity requirement just 100,000. I think it is like the eco car in the past 10 years. So the number seems to be not too big, but I think it's too big for the early stage of the EV adoption. So in this case, it linked to the second point that you mentioned about how this policy or the implication has affected Japanese car makers in Thailand. Yes, but if we think about if you were the government and we want to promote the EV, actually Thai government are quite open. As Martin said, the Thai government quite open and try to implement a fair scheme or measure to all the investor, no matter the investor from Europe, US, Japan, Korea, or China. But since the Japanese car makers, they just invest the eco car, and I think they put a lot of money on that project, right? So it's still, the facility just utilized in less than 10 years. So it may be difficult for Japanese firms to quickly, jump to the EV, even though they have the technology. So they need to get the return from their investment first. But for the Chinese car makers, they are the latecomer, so they do not have to bear any fixed cost. So in my opinion, I think Great Wall models come earlier comparing to BYD. I think BYD has some advantages over the Great Wall models because they come late. Of course, this change will have the impact for the Japanese car maker, and that's why my idea is like we will have cheaper car because of the strong competition between not only more brand but varieties of the source of the energy, PHEV, EREV, HEV, or BEV. So this is my response. I can answer only these 2 points.
I will try to answer. So we always joke in the industry that the Chinese brand is last come but best served, because I think that the industry was developed and with all this incentive. But at the same time, whatever car that they sold in Thailand, they have to produce it depends on the policies. It's at 1 time, 1.5 times. So we are hoping that volumes will come in the next 2 years. So now they may bring in the cars, but finally they need to produce it locally with 1 or 1.5 times. So that is the hope that we're having. And another questions I got was like whether they will export the car globally. So currently we feel that producing the part for stamping, the stamping part itself is we cannot say cheap, it's not very high values, but the tooling itself are more expensive. So I think it's difficult for the OEM to set up plant in every country to supply for the local demand. It's no economy of scales. So maybe Thailand is good in the pickup, and because in the past the Thai pickup market it was big, so they can produce 50% in Thailand and 50% export globally. So maybe this is a structure that the customer will be finding. I think it's difficult for them to even produce a pickup truck in Malaysia because the volumes are so small. So it doesn't make sense. So it's the economy of skills they are looking at. So to just set up brands differently, the manufacturing differently will be difficult, I feel. The investments are too high.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Please, to the back.
Hello, thank you. Fascinating conversation. I'm Matt Phillips from the British Embassy in Bangkok. Two questions. First one, where do you see the future actually of the pickup industry itself in Thailand, seeing as that's so pivotal to Thailand's economic prospects? And specifically in terms of EV pickups, is that something which we're going to see coming down the line? If so, where is that investment going to come from? Will that be a BYD pickup, or will it be a Honda EV pickup? What does that look like? And then the second question is, what are the incentives now, currently, for the Chinese companies to invest in the Thai supply chain, other than a stipulation which, as you've already said, appears to be quite flexible and can be negotiated on a case-by-case basis? And are those incentives currently right? Or does there need to be more done to bring that production, that supply chain into Thailand? Thanks.
Okay, for the pickup truck, I think the pickup truck usage in Thailand is actually quite unique. So they use it for transporting goods, at the same time also transporting people. So I think it's also very few countries in the world that actually do it, have this culture. So I think the pickup truck will still be part of the life of the Thai people, especially for the agricultural sectors. So this is our belief. Is the EV coming? Yes. For now, one of the Japanese brands, they are developing the new EVs. It's actually will be SOP soon, start of production soon, end of this year. But they are not planning to sell it in Thailand yet. So this will be in the European countries where the routes of transportations are very fixed with the infrastructures that are more complete. So yes, some Japanese brands has tested, they will test the market with the EV pickup trucks. But we're also seeing the Chinese brands who will bring in some EV pickup trucks. That one we will have to see how well the market actually reacts to it.
I agree, if I can shortcut. Eventually electric in the long run, but later than passenger cars. It takes longer. Also the pickup drivers are more conservative. They are not keen on technical changes. Don't write off the Japanese, very strong brands and strong technology, and they will fight against. So we will see competition between Chinese and Japanese brands, but those are good companies. They will not give up easily. So Isuzu will be around for a while. Thailand is very unique, yes. Thailand is globally the only market where Isuzu sells more than Toyota pickup trucks. So that alone shows that they have their own opinion about the trucks and a strong belief in it. There was a second question you had. About the incentives, yeah, right. Incentives are okay, as we said. We have to fulfill the 40%. The battery has to be there somehow, and then the key EV components are coming. The concern in the industry is more, will then Chinese companies benefit from these incentives by coming here and cloning their Chinese factories into Thailand? That is the risk we're running at the moment, and we're all a bit frightened. We're also a member of TAPMA. Those TAPMA discussions. We as a Thai tier 1, tier 2 ecosystem, will we survive? Yeah, let's take the challenge, do our best. Huh? We're fighting for it.
So I think the Thai supplier that have survived is strong. So if you have seen the Thai supply chains, the pure Thai supply chain, I have to say, has been reducing over the years. And then after all these reductions, and also especially after COVID, it's like screening through a lot of Thai suppliers and the survival of the fitness. So currently we can see that the pure Thai, whoever survive now on the supply chains, are the stronger ones with more global outlook, with more international standards. So I think they are ready to compete with the Chinese suppliers. But at the same time, it's tough. It's a tough fight with the Chinese suppliers. With the Japanese, we can see that their costs are more expensive. So we are good at producing things at a lower cost. But now with the Chinese coming in, their costs are lower than us. So we will need to think of a new strategies, what to do, because their machines are cheaper. They will just bring their suppliers in from China to build a factory with a cheaper base. But it's an open market. We can't stop them from coming in. We just need to find a way how to be competitive and how to survive.
Yeah, and the whole attitude of Chinese car companies is very different. If you are a supplier to a Japanese company, the customer is very loyal to you. If you screw it up, they even come and help you. And we got used to that in the industry. Difficult if you come in as a newcomer, but if you're in it, then you're in it. And with the Chinese, it's very different. They are not loyal anymore. And if you screw up, then they go next door and shop somewhere else. And that's something we have to find our way, in our position in that system.
Okay, I think you listen from industrialists. I agree with both of you. And the Japanese system in Thailand is like they try to grow with their suppliers. So this is a good thing. And for the pickup trucks, I'm not sure, but I think it's good to have the new model introduced into the timeline. But competition in this segment is very, very intense. So we have to see how the market will develop with the newcomer.
Thank you for those thoughts. We have another question. I'm sorry for pushing you to the end of the line, but please.
Good afternoon to all. My name is Norman Espin. I'm former journalist, former board member of the FCCT, and I have a company called Don't Blink. And I happen, disclaimer, to be a communication advisor to the Board of Investments. So thank you for all the nice words you said about the BOI policies. one thing to, I would say, from a BOI point of view, I would like to emphasize, but Ajahn Kiran nicely said it already, replying to Ajahn Pavida. The effort from the BOI was not to attract Chinese companies only, it was to attract any EV company in the world to come to Thailand. It happens the Chinese answered first, and you have now all the companies, you know, and yes, 4 factories already working and a few more in being constructed. But the pickup truck company that Ms. Yep mentioned is actually Isuzu. They officially announced it on their website, so that's why I can say the name. They will start making EV pickups in Thailand for the Scandinavian market next year, okay? BMW is just in the back of its existing factory in Amata, building a battery assembly, not battery cell, but battery packaging assembly in the back of the factory. And they have already officially announced, also it's on their website, they will start putting together the batteries and EV cars in Thailand from around next year, okay? And Hyundai Kia has already announced starting assembly in Thailand pretty soon. And they will launch the car very soon in Thailand. So just to say, the policy was not to attract the Chinese, the policy was to attract anyone, but the Chinese answered first and the other are following. As for the Japanese, besides Isuzu, Honda made history starting the first pilot line of Japanese EVs, okay? It's not huge numbers, but they started. And Toyota, even at the last motor show, if you were there, I think made a statement showing their BEV pickup right next at the entrance of the motor show, right next to the BYD, to say, hey, don't forget us, I think. That's a personal comment, of course. Then I have another quick note as a user of EV. For 2 years, me and my wife, we have been riding EVs, 3 different brands, and very, very happy. And frankly, the charging station going to Pitsenloch and many other places in the provinces very often is not as bad as you think. It's actually very convenient. We never had a problem of running out of electricity, and we know a lot of other very happy users. Now the question to Mr. Noss and to Ms. Yap is the following. I know, as Mr. Noss said, you already provide parts to Chinese makers in China. Mr. Yep, whom I met a few days ago, also said that Ion, for example, is a customer in China. So you have already your entrance into the Chinese car makers. So you are maybe a bit better off than a few others. But I want to ask you a question. The Nikkei published yesterday an interview with your competitor, Thai Summit, saying that the Thai parts industry has 4 years to adapt, okay? And saying along the way, the good news that that motorcycles and hybrids are still a way to go. But beyond that, EV will come no matter what. And so there are 4 years to adapt. What do you think about that? Are you, your own company is okay within 4 years? And what do you think of the industry at large? Thank you.
I know you wanted to ask questions, but I have to respond to that. The BOI did roll out the red carpet for Chinese car makers. The BYDs can be imported with 0 import tax. BMW can try, you pay 80%. It's an incentive only for Chinese. I don't know, was that an accident? It was an accident, okay. Okay, thanks for that. And we are now in peace, and we really appreciate the BOI, and they do good things, and everything's fair, yes. Right, now I forgot the question again.
Okay, so yes, so as mentioned, we do have to set up a team just to study about the adaptations of EV. So will we survive, and which part will be around and which part will not be around? So we have done a study. So fuel tank, for example, won't be there. So, because we are doing body parts, so I think those parts will still be around with the EVs. So we are quite comfortable in that sense. But at the same time, we are also looking at the new technologies. So GigaPress, we are looking into it, whether it will come or will not come. but it's just something that we will need to explore. Hot stampings, for example, we have invested into it. The demand are not high, but it seems like it will be the future. So things like that, we try to invest and test the market, but as I mentioned, the technologies are changing very fast and we don't really know which way it's going, but we will just have to study and keep monitoring it.
Yeah, now Taisami talked about 4 years, you said, right? I can connect to that. If you say the BOI tells us you have 3 years after vehicle SOP to localize the key EV components. So it takes a few weeks for the mainstream Chinese to localize, and then 3 years is 4 years. I don't think we really have that time, because part of the business philosophy of Chinese companies is speed. They don't wait. They do that now. If I wait for years, then the competitors will do the investment first and nobody needs me anymore. I think we have to be faster by the facts which our Chinese customers are creating now.
Okay, we have one more question on the floor. I'm just asking Tom to give you the microphone instead of making everybody get up and walk there.
Thank you. My name is Axel Blom. I'm from a research company called Norway Connect. From Norway, the country that has the highest penetration of EVs per capita in the world. From a consumer point of view, you have talked about all the manufacturing, etc., etc. But from a consumer point of view, the biggest hurdle right now that we read about in newspapers are, first of all, resale value of EVs, question mark. The second thing that comes up is insurance. Where do they stand? I'd like to hear your opinion on where it's going.
Business first.
About the resale value, yes, I think this is one of the big issues that I would like to mention during answering the question. This is what I heard, not what what I heard from the used car dealer. They said they have problems, twofold, with the entrance of the EV. The first, when the Chinese EV introduced BEV to the market, it drives the value of the used car lower. So they get lost for the first time. This is the first time that they get lost. And the second was from the value of the EV. So there are uncertainty in the state of health of the battery, and they do not know how to evaluate that. So this is, if we use the economic terms, it's like the market for lemon, that when we do not know the exact quality of the used car we are going to buy, then we may not be able to pay exactly the right amount. So we may pay more expensive or it's likely to be more expensive than the quality that it is. And the second is about the insurance. This one is quite complicated to me because, for example, if you purchase a BYD 2 years ago at 1.2 million, including 150,000 baht subsidy. So the value of the car was very high. But today, the same model reduced the price to just 800,000. So I don't know how the market will work, but of course this is kind of chaotic to the insurance company. So what I learned from interviewing some of the people in the business, they said they try to fix with the OIC, right? Kopapor, about how to make the value of the battery separate of the car, something like this. So this is the thing that will have some, it's more complicated than the ICE. So from the consumer point of view, if the Thai people want to buy a new BEV, they need to understand the value when they resell it. And this may discourage the normal Thai people because, as I said, they prefer used car, so they may want to wait for the used car rather than to buying a new BEV. So it's quite complicated situation, but yes, we have to do more research on this.
Yeah, you mentioned the issue of the battery, and that's where both topics are connected. EV, the value of an EV is so much determined by the battery, it's not comparable to a combustion engine. It's more than 50% of the total value. So the battery is very important for any commercial decisions, including second-hand sales and insurances. And as you rightly said, nobody knows the state of health of the battery. That's the uncertainty, and therefore then, for example, insurance companies just increase their premium to be on the safe side for the disadvantage of the consumer. There is technical solution for it. We all have digital twins. We would know the state of health of the battery much better. The advanced Chinese companies have that. They have big enough software teams to have perfect digital twins. They could, with the data they have, immediately tell the state of health of the battery. My company has the same software. We try to market that. It's very hard to find interest for that. Especially insurance companies hold back because they're in a sweet situation now. They just go on the safe side and let the customer pay. I hope time will help for a more mature, more competitive market, that those technical innovations come to the market, and then everybody could calculate more precisely and therefore give better prices.
Thank you. Very interesting questions. Thank you very much. We have one more question at the back. I think after this we have time for one more if anybody has one. Otherwise, we'll conclude.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is absolutely great to be here. Thank you very much. I am Nokput from the International Labour Organization within the United Nations. I have two questions for the panelists. According to the EC Office of Thailand, there are approximately now 850,000 workers in Thai automotive supply chain. During this transition, which may be somewhat unstable if I understand correctly, what are the main challenges for the companies, whether national or multinational, or for the new government in managing the workforce as automation technology becomes more prevalent in the production? And the second question is for the workers or the workers' organizations, how should they adapt, or what skills should they focus on to improve themselves in the right direction? Thank you very much.
Can you please repeat the first question? The first question. The second.
The first question is, what are the main challenges for the companies or for the new government in managing the workforce as the automation technology become more prevalent in the production industry?
So for us, actually, for the blue collars, it has been a challenge for a while for us to actually recruit the blue collars. So if you go to the factories, you will see not only Thais that are working. Some of the factories, they have Cambodians, Burmese. So I guess labor shortage is an issue. So we don't have labor surplus. So that's why we need automations to help to reduce this problem. So with automations, I think the skills need to be changed. So you just need to upgrade yourself to survive with more automations.
Yeah, we will need less people to build electric cars. The vehicle architecture is much simplified compared to imagine an engine and a transmission and an exhaust gas treatment and a hydraulic valve train. This is all much more complicated than a straightforward EV. No transmission, direct drive to the wheel. So demographics can help, as Yip said. We will anyway have less people, but we have to compensate anyway, especially in the short run, not to lose jobs and run into unemployment. What Thailand can do brilliantly is here attracting consolidating business for ICE, for internal combustion engines, because worldwide, despite the slowdown, but there is a decline in ICE. So big companies are forced now to consolidate several factories into one, and Thailand can be a hub for that, and that can help in the short run a lot. That maybe we close factories in Japan and in Europe and have more utilization in our Thai factories. That creates jobs here, and that helps to bridge the time until we are in a mature EV industry.
Okay, I think the labor issue is very crucial, and I have been asked to study this from one government department that what should be the future of the labor demand. And I said, it is very difficult because the change is just 5 years. We cannot run econometrics to answer this. But what I can share my opinion to them is that when the industry has been shifting to EV, as Martin mentioned, the BEV need less parts. So when it need less parts, then the company need less labor. But since the market will expand and the wage tend to be increasing, so automation will be the solution. What should be the main concern for the business and the Thai government is how the labor market will adjust to this. The wage increasing, then the firm will require higher skill. And if the existing skill is not sufficient, what the government should support. So this is the role of the state, that it should try to fill the gaps. And the second one is about the worker. I agree with Ms. Yep about the labor. We have labor shortage. And what I can sense is the entrance of the Chinese EV maker. They may have employ the person who work with the Japanese car makers. So to start up their factories or their business. So in this case, not only the Chinese EV maker need to upgrade or train the new workers, the Japanese car makers or part supplier also need to upskill and reskill their existing workforce. So automation will be maybe the way out in order to maintain the competitiveness. Yeah.
Thank you all very much. Before we conclude, I would just like to say that there is another panel coming up soon, or sorry, it's a human rights report being presented at 3:30 tonight, and then we have two very interesting panels coming up if you are interested in politics. One is on Thursday at 1 p.m., the Freedom Bridge panel discussion, which includes Chatawat Tulaton, former leader of the opposition Move Forward Party, and on October 2nd, the future of Thailand, which includes former PM Abhisit. So I strongly suggest that you take a look at the bulletin and see these other events coming up. They're going to be fantastic. Thank you all for coming for this event and hearing about the changes in the Thai automotive industry. And thank you especially to our panelists for coming and presenting your views.